In 897 AD, the people of Rome gathered in a church expecting justice. What they witnessed was something closer to horror. At the front of the hall sat Pope Stephen VI, dressed in full authority. Before him, accused of grave crimes, sat his predecessor, Pope Formosus. But Formosus was not alive. He had been dead for months. His body had been dug from the grave, dressed in papal robes, and placed on a throne. This was the Cadaver Synod, the infamous trial where a corpse was placed on trial for crimes of state and faith. It remains one of the strangest, most macabre spectacles in the history of the Church. To understand this grotesque trial, we must step into the world of 9th century Rome. The papacy was not the spiritual rock it would later claim to be. It was a prize fought over by powerful noble families, emperors, and warlords. Popes were often pawns in political struggles. Alliances shifted quickly, and death rarely ended a rivalry. Pope Formosus had ruled from 891 to 896. His papacy was marked by turmoil. He had supported the Carolingians in their battle for control of Italy, placing him at odds with other factions. By the time of his death, enemies seethed with resentment. His successor, Stephen VI, inherited both the papal throne and Formosus's enemies. And rather than let the dead rest, Stephen chose revenge. He ordered Formosus's body exhumed for trial. In January 897, the Basilica of St. John Lateran filled with clergy and nobles. At the front sat a ghastly figure, the rotting body of Formosus, dressed in papal vestments, seated upright on a throne. His skin stretched tight, his fingers brittle, his eyes empty sockets. A deacon was appointed to speak for the corpse. Pope Stephen, trembling with fury, read out the charges: that Formosus had broken church law by becoming pope while still a bishop elsewhere, that he had betrayed Rome by inviting foreign powers into Italy, that he had violated sacred oaths. The questions were asked. The deacon answered, in the corpse's name. It was theater of the macabre, a parody of justice staged before horrified onlookers. As the proceedings dragged on, many in Rome began to whisper, was this madness? Was the Pope himself possessed by vengeance? The trial's verdict was inevitable. The corpse of Formosus was found guilty. Stephen ordered the body stripped of papal robes. The 3 fingers Formosus had used for blessings were cut off. His corpse was declared unworthy of office, his deeds annulled, his reign erased. Finally, the mutilated body was dragged through the streets of Rome and thrown into the Tiber River. What had begun as political theater ended as desecration. But vengeance rarely ends cleanly. The grotesque trial shocked Rome. Even in a violent age, the Cadaver Synod was seen as too far. Citizens whispered that divine wrath would follow, and soon it did. A great earthquake shook the city that same year. To many, it was a sign of heaven's anger. Public resentment against Stephen VI grew. Within months, riots erupted. Stephen was imprisoned and strangled in his cell. Later popes annulled the Cadaver Synod, declaring it invalid. The body of Formosus was recovered, reburied with honor, and even restored in memory as a legitimate pope. But the damage to the papacy's reputation lingered. The Cadaver Synod has gone down in history as one of the darkest spectacles of the medieval church, a moment when politics consumed faith so completely that justice was twisted into a grotesque performance. It reminds us that power, unchecked by reason, can descend into cruelty. that leaders blinded by hatred will go to unimaginable lengths, even putting the dead on trial. More than 1,000 years later, the Cadaver Synod stands as a chilling warning. When vengeance rules, justice dies.